Welcome to Greek for a Week. I'm glad that you are continuing to work through First Peter with me here. We're continuing our study in chapter 3, verses 1 through 7, which I have classified or titled as Living in Your Home. So, Peter here, specifically in 3 and 4, is going to continue to describe the wise and what it is that they ought to, I guess you could say, look like before their husbands in the home. Again, you have verse 3 here and verse 4 here. I will translate both of those and we can get moving. So he begins here with whose, or you could say your, and then it's adornment. Your adornment must not be external. The braiding of hair and the wearing of gold jewelry or the wearing of clothes, but or rather the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable quality of a gentle and a quiet spirit, which is precious before or in the presence of God. So these two particular verses, if we look at verse 3, and obviously 3 and 4 are tied together, I'll show you how in a minute, but verse 3 with the hone, we have a relative pronoun that goes back to the humon, or the word for your, in verse 2. So that's why I said you really could translate this first word, your adornment, because it's in reference to the one who Peter says that your husbands can observe your respectful behavior, speaking of the wife. So as we move forward, then he has esto, and here is an imperative, and that imperative is a third person singular, present active imperative. It is the imperatival form of Amy. So he says here, let it must not be. And of course, the not is from our uk, the negative particle there. Then we have a string of genitive phrases. We have the emploques, tricone. Then you have the peri, the, seos, crucion. And then you have your final phrase, the endu, seos, and hemation. So those, Peter speaks of the braiding of hair, the wearing of gold jewelry, and then the wearing of clothes. Well, the first genitive in each of these phrases can be classified likely as an ep-exegetical genitive, which just further describes the adornment, which is found in the ha and the cosmos, further describes the adornment. And then the second genitive here in each one of those phrases are likely objective genitives. Then we get to verse 4, and the word Allah is a conjunction. So here is our tie between verses 3 and 4. We said earlier that verse 3 is tied to verse 2 with the relative pronoun. Then we have the conjunction Allah, which is contrasting this beginning phrase here. It's contrasting that to say, I don't want your adornment to be external. And then he describes it in these three ways. I don't want it to be that, but rather, and here's our connection, rather, I want it to be the hidden person of the heart. And the hidden person of the heart really is the subject then. This hidden person of the heart is the subject of the imperative in verse 3, which is right here, your esto. The tes cardios here is likely an ep-exegetical genitive. So again, it's further describing the hidden person. there. And then what I want to talk about next is your ha, esten. So this is a relative clause that further describes and really points back to all of verse 4. So he says here, it's the hidden person of the heart with the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit. What does that look like? Which is, and so he says here, which is this relative clause, which is precious in the presence of or in the sight of God. It points back to all of verse 4. So again, trust this has been helpful. That was verses 3 and 4. Next week, we will look at verses 5 and 6. And then the following week, we will look at verse 7 that deals specifically with the husbands. Have a great week.